What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Pivot Mindset Podcast. My name is Justin. I am your host, and we believe here that life is all about the pivots, and those who decide to make the pivots decide to become successful. Whether it's in your career, your relationships, your personal growth, the ability to pivot and to adapt is crucial to reaching your full potential and becoming the absolute best version of yourself. And so get ready to be inspired and motivated to make your own pivots towards success. Man, really excited to have you guys joining us on another session, another podcast. No matter where you're tuning from, I just want to welcome you into the pivot, welcome you to the Pivot Mindset Podcast. And today's topic, we are going to talk about how to learn to close the gaps between what you could do and what you will do. It's a really long topic. I know it's a really long topic, but really just talking about how to close the gaps in your life. If I'm honest with myself, there are many gaps that I have in my own life. And I think at the top of the year, and what most people would do as they walk into a new year, is we start to be more introspective and we start to ask ourselves, man, how do we get better, right? Like, how do we level up? How do we take that next step? How do we get more money? How do we get a better body? How do we build better relationships, right? Our health, wealth, and relationships, those become high priorities for us at a new year. And we start to be more reflective on those things. And what I found is the most effective way to get better at anything is to identify and to begin to close the current gaps that you have. And so, Justin, what do you mean by like the gaps that I have? Just like you would like look at a window, right? And if you think of like an old school window or a really inefficient window, we call those windows inefficient, not just because of how old they are, but because of their lack of ability to retain airflow or to retain the heat that's in the house, right? So when you have a bad window, what's happening is like the seams are starting to break down and deteriorate, and air from outside is starting to get inside. And so what it takes for you to heat up the house often is more, right? So your heat bill goes up, your gas bill goes up, all that kind of stuff to keep a house warm, or in the summer to keep a house cool. And what's really important, and using this as an analogy, what's really important is you learn how to close those gaps. And so I want you guys to think of your life and all of the actions, all of your disciplines, all of your decision-making as the windows of your life. And if you are trying to improve any area of your life and you're not getting closer or you're not where you want to be, one of the first best steps you could take is start to look at your decision-making, your actions, your mindset, right? Like these are the windows of your house, and your house is your life, right? And so I want to talk about how to close these gaps, right? How to close and be intentional about closing these gaps. Because, and here's one of the biggest things that I want you guys to start to empower yourselves with, is that you would be a lot further in life if you could learn to close the gap between what you could do and what you will do. There is this gap that many people have. I have it. Many people that I know have it. And this gap is, hey, this is what I know I could do. Here is what my potential is. Here's what I desire. Here's what inspires me or motivates me. If all circumstances were ideal and I had the best setup and all that kind of stuff, I had the perfect background, perfect upbringing, perfect scenario, here's the things that I could do. And you know what those things are. You know you could have a better body. You know you could have a better bank account. You know that you could have more money for retirement right now. You know you could have better relationships. But there's this gap often between what we could do and what we actually will do, or what we actually are doing. And in that gap stands all of the mediocrity and all of the misses that we're experiencing in our lives. And so if there's any area in your life right now that, and maybe like you've got some resolution or you're setting some new goals for the new year, and you're looking at it, and if you're being honest with yourself, you could truly say to yourself, man, I've just got gaps in this area of my life. Like I'm confident that if I were to close some of these gaps that I've got in this area, that I might actually be better off. Like I might be further in life. I might have more success. I might have better relationships. And so you got to learn how to close these gaps, right? You got to learn how to close these gaps and be more intentional about building the house, right? As we talk about that analogy that I provided earlier, right? Like how to build the house of what we want, and our decision making, our habits, and all those things are really just windows that let out what we're trying to keep in. Okay. So I'm gonna give you a couple steps, or a couple tips, I should say, on how to close these gaps in your life. So one of the first things that I think you got to do when it comes to really being introspective and looking at what gaps do I have, is you have to first spend the time, and what I would say is first have conversations with people that you trust. So the first thing that I would do if I was looking, and this is not what I would do, but what I will do, what I'm doing is I have mentorship, I have coaches, I have people who counsel me, and we talk about the gaps that I currently have in my life, like the things that if I can get better at, I know that my life will be further. And so often most people will tell you to like do this by yourself, to journal and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's important. I think you should be more introspective and sit down with yourself. I think that's really important. But I don't think we often look at community enough. And I don't think that we look at bringing people alongside us that also can see us the way that God sees us, and to give us background, suggestions, feedback, things of that nature. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to tell you to do is you've got to start asking people to judge you. All right. So judging is not something that you should be afraid of. I want you people, the right people now, right? Like I'm not saying just have anybody judge you that you don't know and that you don't trust, but people who you believe whose lives are better than yours, or they have the right visibility of you, or maybe they're in the direction that you are wanting to go. They're mentors, they're people that you look up to. Ask them to judge you, and tell them that, like, I want you to be extremely critical because I want really important feedback. I need feedback to get better. So that's the first thing, is you're gonna be asking for people around you to judge you. That's gonna be the first thing, to close the gaps. Often these gaps are blind spots, and so it's sometimes hard to sit with yourself and learn what these gaps are. But I'm telling you that there's people around you, and they may not know, or they may not feel like it's their place to even tell you. So I want you to give them permission to tell you what your gaps are, because you're going to be a lot better off once they tell you what your actual gaps are and what the areas of your life, the windows of your house that you need to close. Okay. So that's the first one, is get people to judge you. The second thing that you've got to be able to do to be able to close these gaps is you've got to also be looking at your results, and look at the life that you have right now and compare that to the life that you desire. And if you, on one side of the paper, wrote, here is what my finances look like, here is what my health looks like, here's what my relationships look like, here's what my car looks like, here's what my house looks like, here's what my relationship with my children look like whatever things you're valuing, here's my relationship with God, and this is what that looks like. And then on the right side of the paper, you write what your desire or your dream is. And I want you to just be able to write those two and take a look at it, right? If you do this exercise of telling you it'll change your life, write these two down and look at it and see how far apart they are. See how far apart you are currently versus what you desire. And you've got to be extremely honest with yourself. It doesn't help you in this part, like when you're going through this exercise to close these gaps, it doesn't help you to not be honest and not be as transparent as possible. Okay. So number two is I want you to write down what you currently have and where you currently are versus what you desire and what those goals are and what those dreams are, and think big and think like really audaciously. Okay. Now, we want to then begin to take action towards that goal, right? We want to be able to be intentional about taking the action towards that goal. And so this could involve seeking out new opportunities, setting aside time to work on personal projects, or finding ways to be more proactive in your personal and professional life. Taking action towards your goals could mean that you've got to switch up your routine to be more conducive to the kind of life that you want to build. Some people, they have a desire for something, but they haven't built their life around that thing yet. And so your patterns and your routines and your rituals are going to be really important as you talk about taking action towards that goal, right? So we gotta start with taking the action, right? What is the action that you got to take? And here's the thing that's important is if you haven't taken the action yet, there's something currently in the way stopping you from taking that action. And so if you never switch up your routine, if you never switch up your habits, if you never switch up your rituals, you will find yourself having the same results that you've always had. And so if you want to have a different life, you have to live a different life. If you want different results, you have to put in different actions, different habits, different routines. Okay. So you got to be able to take action towards the goal. Here's the one that a lot of people won't talk about, because we are in a instantaneous success age and success generation, is that I'm going to tell you to be patient and persistent. Like, both of them have to exist together. I need you to be extremely patient, and I need you to be extremely persistent. That's the fourth tip, right? It's like putting those together. And to close the gaps in your life can take time, and it may require a lot of effort and a lot of dedication and a lot of deep work, right? And so I don't want you to be discouraged by the time it may take. Don't be discouraged if you don't see results immediately. Don't be discouraged if it doesn't pop as fast as you think it is or supposed to be, right? But keep working towards your goals, and you will eventually start to see the progress, okay? And so be patient and persistent. Be patient and persistent. Be patient and persistent, okay? And then here's the fifth one that, man, I think is like cannot go without being said, is I need you to dive into your word. I need you in your Bible. I need you really asking God that he would begin to give you wisdom and discernment and provide to open up opportunities for you and begin to show you the route and the steps to go. If you're honest, and this is really how I live my Christian life, is I work truly like it all depends on me, and I truly pray like it all depends on God. And so as I'm going out throughout my day, I've got an extremely hard, large work ethic, and I think that's important. But as I go throughout my prayer closet, right, I have a really exhaustive, really faithful, really large request in submission to the will of God on my life. And you can have both. You can have work ethic and faith. They don't have to be mutually exclusive, right? And so, being able to pray, being able to sit with God, being able to ask God to reveal to you what this should look like, right? Like, how is this important? And here's the connection that I think everyone has to be able to make, is I want you to be able to make the connection between where you are right now and the vision that God has for you and the destiny in which God has placed you here. And the closing the gaps that we're talking about, it has to be much bigger than you. It has to be much bigger than your family. Like, how will you impact the kingdom? How will you impact other people around you? How will your city be changed? How will this world be changed as a result of you doing this thing, right? You've got to see the bigger picture and not just seeing sometimes the narrow one that's sometimes in front of us, okay? And so that's what I've got for you today, and really how to close the gaps in your life, how to close the gap between what you could do and what you actually will do. Your year, this 2023 for you, will be dramatically different if you can be intentional about closing the gap between what you could do and what you will do. All right. And so thank you all. Thank you for listening to the Pivot Mindset Podcast. I appreciate you. Feel free to give this podcast a rating and review. Share this with your friends. We're making some changes in 2023, and so excited to have you a part of this journey and a part of this community that we're building here at the Pivot Mindset Podcast. And remember, we believe that life is all about the pivots, and those who decide to make the pivots decide to become successful. Peace.